How did you start practicing Ashtanga Yoga and what initially drew you to it?
So I dabbled into yoga when I was living up in Scotland, and I had no idea what it was. And I bought John Scott's primary series book just randomly. Tried to do the postures when I got home, and I realized that most of the time people are putting their palms on the ground when they forward fold, and that was impossible. So I shelved the book for several years and didn't really think about it. I moved back to London and I noticed a few of my friends were practicing yoga, and at the time I was very much into the gym. I thought yoga was for ladies. I didn't see any benefit to it, but my friends said, well, why don't you just start a beginner's class and we'll join you? And so they said, choose a style, and I just chose Ashtanga mainly because I heard like Madonna did it and Sting
Right.
did it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I thought, well, if it's good enough for them, I'll try it. So I went to the beginners class with my friends, and something just really piqued my interest, and I noticed myself asking a lot of questions during the class. And then after the class finished, I started going to regular lead classes, and yeah, it just kind of built from there. The main reason where it boosted my practice was after a breakdown of a relationship, and I was going through a very difficult emotional time, and I wasn't sleeping, and I thought, well, since I'm up at 4 in the morning, I might as well go to a Mysore style class. And that's really where my practice sort of took off.
Yeah.
And that took a couple of years. And then I found John Scott's book in my box of stuff that I shoved in the attic. And I thought, interesting. I'd already done primary series, and looking at that book, I was like, wow, I've come full circle. So I think that's really how I got into it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really curious actually, what was it about the practice that made you ask more questions? Like, was it a physical thing? Like, why are we doing it like this? Or was it more of like I'm having an experience, why am I having this experience?
I think definitely when I first started it was purely a physical thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted the physical practice that could help me get into old age. I couldn't see myself going to the gym and pumping weights for the rest of my life. So I wanted something that would give me back something, and it wasn't purely aesthetics.
Yeah.
And I thought yoga would be a perfect way to do it. It was mainly a physical thing, and through that I noticed much more emotional and psychological changes. And it was only probably 6 months into regular lead classes, like maybe once or twice a week, one of my staff members at work just said to me, you're a different person. You're much calmer and less sort of reactive and angry. And I was very stressed at work, and I didn't even notice this. It took someone else to actually point that out to make me realize that actually it's doing something.
Yeah.
And, through practicing regularly and reading around the subject of yoga, so not just about the asana practice, but, the philosophy behind it, it really put me on this sort of trajectory, which has paid dividends.
Yeah, I realised that we didn't introduce you as well at the beginning. So I suppose, obviously, it would be nice to know your name, but also the whole point of this for me is I started Weird Strong to kind of celebrate the strength that yoga gives, but also the strength of the individuals that practice irrespective of yoga, and how yoga supports life and life supports yoga. Basically, the people that practice in the Mysore room for me are like heroes. Like, everyone is, in my view, excelling in their chosen field. And for me, that's just really interesting. And I want to provide inspiration to other people, tips and tricks of how to support their lifestyle with yoga and vice versa. That's the context. With that context, who are you? Like, what do you do? How long have you been practicing?
My name's Thein Win. I've been practicing for probably about almost 10 years now. From my first kind of beginner's class, I am a doctor for my day job.
So what does your current daily practice look like, and how has it evolved over time?
Well, my previous practice was probably about 4 days a week and full-on practice, which would often be about 2.5 hours. COVID then came along and changed a lot of things. So teachers left, classes were kind of scattered and made online, etc. So I then had a daily practice during lockdown, which was phenomenal because it was very explorative. But then I think coming out of lockdown, because of work schedules, I would say I probably practice 2, maybe 3 times a week now. I have to sort of condense everything into the class time. So I wouldn't say I have a daily practice, but I try to maintain at least some sort of meditative practice on the days that I don't do a physical practice. So sitting meditation, even if it's like, 5-10 minutes before I go to work. So I do maintain something like that. but I have mixed into my physical practice some calisthenics. Dance has been a big thing since lockdown as well. So I do find that a mindful practice because it involves a lot of breath, concentration, coordination, movement. And so, yeah, I would say that is a practice.
Absolutely.
So I practice probably about 3 or 4 dance classes a week as well. Yeah, on top of.
Yeah, I always thought with Ashtanga, you kind of memorize 1, maybe 2, and if you're like really advanced, 3 and 4 sequences. But for dance, you get a sequence, and you have to memorize it so quickly. It took me so long to memorize the primary series, for instance. It's like I can't imagine the intelligence that dancers have.
It's amazing. I have such respect for actual professional dancers and what they have to do. But a lot of it is not overthinking things and really feeling what's going on in your body as opposed to being in your head. And I think there's a lot of overlap with yoga. I find it complements my yoga practice.
So what is one lesson from yoga that's helped you grow as a person in unexpected ways?
I would say how yoga's helped me, certainly professionally, is it has helped me stay grounded and actually be less reactive. And in my line of work, you face a lot of people who come into your office with a lot of emotional problems, psychological problems, mental health problems, and they basically offload their emotions onto you. And I used to react to that, and I would get into arguments with patients, which you should never do. But what yoga has helped me is remain sort of non-reactive and actually to look beyond what you see on the surface and always inquiring about someone's backstory. This has really saved my career and also probably helped a lot of patients along the way as well, because I was getting very frustrated with my job. I felt that patients were just coming in, dumping their problems on me. I just saw patients as problems as opposed to people who had unfortunate circumstances. Practicing yoga, I started to see them in a different way. And actually, there's that compassion that then starts to come through as well. And there were moments where I had very difficult patients where I could have actually just struck them off our list because of their behavior. But something kind of stops me and makes me look beyond that and look at what is the context of their behavior? Why? What has led to them up to this point presenting in this way? And when you sort of step back a little bit and then start asking sort of questions around that, you get to understand the patient and their history. And when the patient feels heard and understood, suddenly their demeanor changes. And then you then get that therapeutic relationship with them. It's a very fulfilling feeling when you can connect with that patient and then realize that actually, let's just ignore what's happening on the surface and actually drill down as to where this problem is actually coming from. I've had patients just completely change their life around, mainly because someone understood them and someone heard them. So I think yoga really helped me do that.
What do you think it is about? As of now, we've only talked about the physical practice. I'm curious, what about the practice has translated into that?
I really didn't understand. I was thinking, how does a physical practice change you as a person? That's impossible. Like scientifically, with my scientific hat on, I still question. I still think, how does it happen? But sometimes, actually, we maybe just need to stop questioning and just go along with it. But I do think that somehow something during the practice quietens your mind. And if you are focused with your breathing and the movement at the same time, the sort of chatter then quietens down as you're practicing. And I often find that if I have a dilemma or a question I need to ask and I'm racking my brains as to what I should do, for example, during this breakup of a relationship, after practicing, the answer just naturally bubbles up to the surface once you've just quietened that chatter down. That aspect of the physical practice is really quite remarkable. How that happens, I couldn't answer that. Everyone who practices has the same experience. So something's obviously, working there.
I definitely relate to that. How do you measure success in life? And has that definition changed since you started practicing Ashtanga?
The meaning of success to me definitely has changed. Whether that was due to Ashtanga, I'm sure that probably has something to do with it. But over time, it changes anyway. And I'm sure Ashtanga has assisted me in understanding that. I guess when I was younger, my idea of success was to have this kind of job, earn this amount of money, be a consultant in something, you know, be at the top of my game, and all the kind of physical things that come with it, you know, house, car, whatever. As I've gone through my career, I you know, that has changed a lot because I started to see all the things that come along with all these physical goals that you set yourself. How Ashtanga actually helped to support that change, I definitely feel that because you are much more self-aware and I guess more sort of compassionate to yourself, it has made me think about success in a very different way. And nowadays, I guess success is actually feeling content and knowing what's enough. But you know, obviously, we still have bills to pay. We need to survive and feed ourselves, etc. I guess I don't really think too much about success anymore. Maybe that's where things have changed.
Right. What advice would you give to someone who is new to Ashtanga and struggling to integrate it into their life?
I would say be warned, it is a very challenging physical practice. And I would say, at least when you're starting, you know, 3 days a week, to notice any sort of body changes, trigger the muscle memory, etc. I would say that you will get injuries because initially you're so hungry for the practice that you want more postures, and the more you see that the impossible becomes possible, that does stimulate an appetite for getting more and more postures. But those injuries are definitely there to teach you something. Without those failures, you won't know what success, you know, is. And if you're looking for more postures as a form of success, it will teach you that actually, you know, the postures are just postures. There's more. Whatever you achieve, there will be more in your path. So I think be prepared for injuries, be prepared for setbacks, but all these are metaphors for life.
Right.
And I think that's the greatest teacher. So I think stick at it. It is difficult initially, but then when you suddenly understand it, things just progress afterwards. And I would say don't get too frustrated with primary series, because I think for me personally, primary series was probably the most transformative out of, you know, the intermediate, and I'm touching on the third series. But I would say primary series is something that I always seem to get drawn back to because it really changed my body and it made me strong.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Thein.
No worries.
Yeah. Thank you.